Hello, hello, everyone. This is going to be part 2 of our incident management training. The focus on this is going to be walking through the actual creation of incidents. We're going to do that today by going through a few, similar scenarios, but just kind of walking you through some different aspects of that. We're going to focus on basically the beginning to end process of creating an incident management from the point of a teacher observation. So a teacher, the way you're probably going to get a lot of incidents, which is teacher makes an observation, submits it as a referral for discipline, an administrator receives that, reviews it, turns it into an actionable incident, and then finalizes that. We're also going to take a minute to discuss or take some time to discuss the creation of both incident and participant templates, which can help significantly speed up the process of submitting incidents for those incidents that you're going to have to do a lot and find that you're going to do repeatedly. Usually the kind of baked in standardized stuff that's pretty common. And then finally, we'll go through a process of creating an incident directly from the admin portal, utilizing those templates so you can see how much quicker that is to actually get an incident created from start to scratch, or from beginning to end with those incident templates in place. We do have a good bit of information to go through on this. Susan and I are going to be working through this together. I'm going to be walking through most of that creation process, and once I've been able to speak on that, we're going to have Susan take over in presenting or in discussing the state reporting sides of incident creation. And again, so today we're going to talk about incident management. Just so you are aware, for reference, in our meta documentation. So I'm going to be going through these things with you. I'm going to be showing you a lot of kind of live screen work as we work through this, but just so you are aware, if you need it at any point, you can see we do have also some nice walkthrough guides that are available in our meta documents page. We have one that walks you through exactly kind of what I've described, walkthroughs of from the point of observation to incident creation. We've got a nice walkthrough available for incident participant templates, and I've created a walkthrough for anybody that was on the admin side that just wanted to create an incident directly from within the admin portal from scratch. So we'll go ahead. Just want to let you know that those are available for you to access within the meta documentation page. So as I mentioned, I think the best way for us to kind of show how this is done is to just do it. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do today. The first kind of scenario, the first walkthrough that we kind of want to go through is, like I said, I want to show you kind of how this life cycle would work from the point of a teacher making an observation all the way through the point where that observation was submitted as a referral, turned into an actionable incident, and then the incident was completed by an administrator to be able to submit that incident. So I'm going to go ahead, and to start out, we're gonna just pretend to be a teacher here. We're going to put our teacher hat on today, and let's just start out in Power Teacher Pro, or I should say the Power Teacher Portal, to kick this off. So we go ahead and jump in. You can see this is the Power Teacher Portal, of course, where you can launch Power Teacher Pro and all of those wonderful things. In order for a teacher to submit an observation or submit a referral, the first thing they're going to want to do is navigate to the student observation screen. So you can see right here on that left navigation bar, you can click student observations right here. And that's going to bring you into the student observation and referrals kind of landing page. This landing page displays, now obviously in my example I don't have a bunch of already created things, so you're not seeing anything down here. Normally this landing page would display basically a log or a list of all of the previously entered observations and referrals that were made. It is a completely filterable screen where you can filter by participants. You can do smart searches to search through that, or you can select drop downs. That's going to be one of our example students here, so it's still pulling some of that back from prior things. Also worth noting in here, as we're going through this, we've all done our best on the meta side to make sure that this is as realistic of a simulation as possible. But bear in mind, we are working in a training database, so there may be some strange looking names. There may be a few things here and there that look a little bit different from what you may see on your assists, and that's okay. Just be aware of that. Again, filters here, you can filter by statuses and you can filter by date ranges. So again, just a nice filterable spot. The other thing you can do is create an observation, which is what we're going to want to do today. Also, it's worth noting that observations created can be positive or negative. Our focus obviously here is not really on positive observations. This is going to be focused around the discipline side for incident management. So we're going to be focusing on creating a discipline referral or a teacher referral for discipline. But just be aware, it is kind of a district decision, and that's a discussion for districts and teachers to have on how they want their teachers to utilize this observation and referral screen. So with that in mind, if you do need to create a new observation, first thing you're going to want to do is click on this Create Observation button. It's going to bring you into the main observation creation screen. And the very first thing that it's going to ask you to do, understandably so, is to add any participants that were involved in the observation. Keep in mind, participants could be offenders, they could be witnesses, they could be staff, they could be, they could be some combination of all of those things. But you want to make sure that you list your, get all of your participants in before you move on to anything else. So we're going to start, and we're going to keep things pretty simple in this demonstration, just so we don't muddy waters as we're working through things. So we're going to just have a single student incident at this point. But the first thing you want to do is, of course, you want to choose what kind of student is this. So you can say that you have a drop-down menu here of a few different things that you can select. You can select My Student, which would be, if you had a student in one of your classes, which is going to then allow you to also filter by class. You could select all. Obviously, for simplicity, I only have one class listed here. But if you had all of your classes, you could say, I want all of my students in all of my classes, or you could filter down to a specific class, at which point you could then scroll through the list of names in that class, or you could use a search, and you can, of course, it is a smart search. So as you start typing, once you get about 3 letters in, it's going to start filtering down for what it thinks you're looking for to help make that a little bit easier. You can also search by any student. When you use any student, that's going to change those filtering options. It obviously removes that class function. It just kind of switches it to that smart filter. Again, that then opens it up for teachers to create observations with any student in class, not just with their students. That obviously could be useful if the student was, or if the teacher was maybe out the hall, at a recess, somewhere where they're going to be interacting with students other than just their classroom and may need to add stuff. You can also filter by staff. Within staff, you can, again, go through a list and search all staff. You could use a smart search to start filtering that down by typing. You can also further filter on the staff option by selecting active only, which is then going to change the smart search and this list to filter out any non-active staff. There's also 2 other options here. Maybe this was something that happened on a school campus, but not specifically in a classroom or in the hallway, maybe at a football field or something, and there was a volunteer involved, or a police officer or anything like that. That could be considered an additional participant. So you have the option to set other. When you set other, you'll notice obviously there's not going to be a good way to really search. If it's other, it's not somebody that's going to be student or staff, faculty that would already be in your SIS. So in that scenario, instead you just kind of have this plus option to add a new person. When you add that, you can put in the person's first name, middle name, last name. Again, there are some character limits, but you've got quite a few you can do for names there. You can list a position. That'd be a good spot for just kind of, generic entry, parent, visitor, police, something that just kind of describes what this other person was. Bear in mind that is a 30 character limit, so you're not writing a book on this one. You can add in an age, and you can add in a gender. You also have an option up here at the top. If you didn't know who the person was, you can say, you know what, there was another person involved. Maybe they were a witness, but I'm not sure who they were. You could say that that's an unknown person, which just kind of breaks that down to only have to fill in or try to fill in some of this, as much of this information as you can. There is also an other no name option. This is, I'm not exactly sure why we have the other and other no name, to be completely honest. You'll notice if I click plus on here, it's the exact same information as other, but it is an option that is available within PowerSchool. So just be aware that is there. And really, again, if your district wants to use that, how your district wants to do that, that's kind of a district decision. For the purposes of state reporting, for the purposes of functionally working in PowerSchool, doesn't really make a difference at all. In our situation, we're going to go ahead and say that what we're running into is one of my students, and it's going to be one of the students in my one class. And that student is, we'll go with Jenna Lynn Bailey. So we've got her in here, and be aware though, just because we have this listed here, that doesn't mean that that is a created participant. That means we have found the person we want. You have to click this add button. If you didn't click add, you're not going to get too much further with them. So I'm going to go ahead and click add, and you'll see as soon as I do, that drops things down here. And now we have some additional options. You can, again, keep in mind, you could add, you could continue adding things, if as you see fit. Maybe we have an unknown person. You'd fill that information in and add them, and it's just going to keep adding those as needed. If at any point you said, you know what, I didn't mean to put that in, that was my bad, you can just remove that very easily. But just understand, again, you want to add those people, and it's going to build that list down so you have the list of everyone. And then once you've had everyone created, then you can move down into what we'll call the role section of this, or the participant and role section, so you can note roles. So you can see here I have a participant. Once I have a participant, you'll see that in this version of the SIS, it creates the different roles that you can choose from. And then those roles, there's a drop-down menu under each one for you to turn that on or off. Now, I have seen some variation in this. I have seen some other SIS, slightly different versions within the SIS, that instead of having drop-down menus, it just had little kind of bubble icons for each of these, and you would click it once to turn it on, click it again to turn it off. In this case, this is going to be a single student incident, and this is going to be something that I'm sure a lot of teachers and administrators have dealt with quite a bit. We're going to say this is the offender, but also remember, like I said, you can also make them a witness. You can make them a victim. Heck, maybe they really just like being honest and they're the reporter too. So you can set any or all of those. You're not limited on the roles you can assign here, but just be aware generally how that works. So once we have added a role, then you want to go ahead and move on into incident details. So within an observation, as you can see, I'm kind of showing you through the whole screen here. This is the entire screen for an observation and for submitting a referral. So this detail section is really just the meat and potatoes of everything. So first thing we want to do, obviously you want to enter a date and time. You can see here that those have been set as required, and it does automatically default to current date and current time when an observation is being created. You can, of course, change that as the teacher, and you'll be able to also modify that once received as the administrator, but just be aware that does auto-populate. Once you've put in, we'll say that this just happened, so we'll go ahead and stick with that date and time. And the next question it's going to ask you is a time frame. So in the time frame, you can select just, again, what frame of time was this, did this occur? Again, I mentioned that this is going to be an incident that happened in the classroom. So let's go ahead and say that that time frame is going to be during class. And sorry, I see that Nita put in the chat that they wanted to understand why things look different. Again, I've just seen some variation, and I think that may have just been a variance depending on the SIS versions. So it may just be that the version that we have in this training environment is such that it's showing them as drop downs. And yeah, again, Yeah, you would just, under offender, you'd click offender. If the version shows, instead of drop-down menus, just kind of shows like what look like little radio buttons, you would just click those buttons to turn those on and off. I'll go back then and we'll talk about, again, time frames. So we'll say that this happened during class. Again, since this happened during class in the classroom, as we're going through and filling in location, this is going to have happened. You know, you could say on class or on campus, but we're going to make this a little bit more specific and say that this happened. We know that this happened since it was in a classroom at the high school. So we'll choose Apple Grove High School. And then we have subcodes in here that were set for the location. And we're going to say specifically that happened in the classroom. Once you've added in this information, there's also a location description. This is where you can provide things like the specific room number or a more detailed area of the general location that you've set. In this case, we're just going to say this happened in Mr. Townsend's classroom. We then want to make sure that we create a title. Title should just be a concise title. You don't have a whole lot of room here to enter anything. You don't want to write a whole sentence. We're just going to keep it something simple. Again, let's make this something that happens probably a lot. And you can see here as we're going, it already is telling me, hey, you've got to put something in. I moved off the screen, so it got mad at me. We'll go ahead and put that in here, and we'll just say there was a cell phone out in class. And once you've got that title in, this is where you can kind of put some more of those details. So let's go ahead, put some details in here for what went down. I'm going to go ahead and note in here, Jenilyn took her cell phone out during an active class lecture. Upon seeing Jenilyn on her phone, she was asked to put the phone away. She did, but then pulled it out again after getting a text. She was then a second time asked to put the phone away. She instead rolled her eyes, then returned to typing the text message. Jenilyn was asked a third time, or warned a third time, to put the phone away, or she'd receive a discipline referral. That's when she yelled out in class, "Don't tell me what to do. You're not my dad." So, all right. Again, maybe not in that exact scenario, but cell phone violations aren't anything real uncommon. Once the teacher has put in the description and they feel that they've put enough information in here, they do have quite a bit that they can write in. This has a 4,000 character limit. You can see I put that in. I'm not even getting to a quarter of the way through it. So they can put a good bit of information in here. You can just fill that description out. The next section that the teacher will need to go through is they're going to want to talk about remediation actions that they took. So earlier in the setup, it was set that they had those teacher remediation codes and subcodes that were created. That's where you're seeing all of this starting to get built. And these are kind of the situation or the design that I was talking that I've also seen these offender items in, kind of like a clickable button. So they've kind of got an interesting blend on this one, and maybe that's a good thing for our purposes here. But you can see we have these different options that you can select. I'm not going to select one right now. We're going to come back around to these actions taken. You'll understand why once we get a little further into this. But just understand they would want to make sure that they, if you have this as an option, they're going to want to kind of click that information in. You can see as I click this, just to show you how that works. You click it, it gives you a check to recognize that it's been clicked, and it kind of highlights it in blue. If you click it again to just uncheck that. There's also a section down here for comments. This is really kind of designed, ideally, I think defaultly it's designed to be the spot where the teacher could put in comments regarding the remediation actions that they've indicated that they've taken. The thing to be aware on this field is it does only have a 250 character limit. So even up here, this isn't a huge book that I wrote. That would be more than could fit in here. And it would just kind of cut things off. So be aware, if they've got comments and they don't think that that could fit in here, they could actually come up here and also add that. It doesn't functionally really matter all that much. It's just a spot to kind of provide that data to help give a better understanding of the incident as a whole as the administrator's investigating this referral to create it as an incident. So in our situation, we're going to say, you know what, the teacher was doing this right between a passing period. They had a limited amount of time. They went through, they got what they could in before they had to jump over to get ready to class. And down here at the bottom, again, have to click something or else nothing will happen. They could cancel if they didn't want to do anything with this, want to forget it happened. You could click to just save this as an observation. That would almost kind of be like the teacher saving it as a note. They could always come back to that observation and then resubmit it or submit it as a referral instead of saving it as an observation. But this would just be a good spot where they can just, again, be on that observation screen. But here, this is a discipline referral, so we do want to make sure that we send this off to administration to refer as a discipline. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit as referral. When you click submit, it's going to warn the teacher, hey, observations are no longer editable after submitting unless an administrator returns the referral with feedback. Are you sure you want to submit this as a referral? So this is giving the teacher a heads up that once they click that submit button, they can't do any more editing to that observation unless the administrator sends this back to them with some feedback options. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, the teacher was in a hurry, but they thought they were done. They click submit. And now you can see it brings us back into that teacher's observation screen. And now you can see, instead of that lonely blank log, we do have an item listed here. There's that title I wrote, the date that it happened, the participant, and the status referred. You can see here, there's nothing I can really do with this now other than click and just review the details of what I put in. So the teacher can always go back and look at stuff, but there's no option to change anything at this point. So they've now submitted a referral. Pretty quick, pretty simple. Let's go ahead and put on our administrator hat then, and let's jump over into the admin side. So if we were to jump into the admin side, here I am at the district office. You could also be at a school building if you were maybe the assistant principal or something like that, handling discipline for just the building. But I've got this set at the district office just to kind of show you, you can kind of do this, at either location. But in order to get to that incident, the first thing we're going to want to do as an administrator is you need to click on people, then navigate over here to student administration, and we're going to look at all incidents. Now, when you click on the all incidents screen, it's not just that one referral, it is all incidents. If you've never seen this screen before, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of things. So at the very top of the all incidents screen, the first thing you'll notice is kind of this big block up here. So this is one of the things that's actually kind of cool about incident management. It gives you a nice little dashboard right up at the top here. And you can see what this is doing is this is showing you a nice overview dashboard of, well, we'll say here, all of these lovely items that have been created. And it's looking at all of those and giving you a nice breakdown for, you have a selectable filter here. We've got it set for this current school year. You can also look at prior years, calendar years, prior calendar years. You can break it down to month, week. You can give it to your own custom date range, or you can set just a single specific date. So you have some options on filtering on the date range. And then down here, it's then providing a breakdown. In this case, you can see that we're showing a dashboard with a breakdown of the incident element. So it's showing you, how many athletic incidents were created, counselor incidents were created. The vast majority of what we're seeing here were discipline incidents. So you can see that. Maybe though, you don't really want to worry about all of the different incidents. Maybe you're wanting to see, hey, what kind of actions were people being noted for? So these would be, somebody did something and here's the consequence of it. Now you can see it changed what we did over to the detention, law enforcement, how these were submitted as the action types that were applied. You can also filter down here for different behavior types. You can filter for, as I mentioned before, the incident types for all incidents. You can even create your own custom where you can then come in and set some of the different things that you want. So you can create your own custom dashboard as well as you see fit. Pretty cool little dashboard, nice and simple. We're going to cancel this since I don't want to make my own custom one right now, but just to give you a quick rundown of what this top part of the screen is. You can also further down, this is the filter that you have available for all of the incidents you created. So you can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff here, all kinds of things. You can see that there are IDs, so you can filter by an ID, you can filter by title, you can filter by a whole lot of different things. In this case, I'm looking for referrals. I'm looking for the things that teachers sent to try and get the discipline incidents created. So we want to look at the observation status because is it an observation or is it a referral? So you can see we can also filter. You'll see that there's returned. You can see that there's accepted. That's just kind of filtering further, and you're going to see that here in a moment. We're going to say that we sent that referral, so we're just looking for referred incidents. And so if I apply that, now you can see that's broken things down quite a bit. And now we went from that huge long list to just here's the handful of referrals we've got. And sure enough, right here, ID 2112, cell phone out in class, there's that referral that just came through today from Apple Grove High School. So we're going to go ahead and click on, click on this. You can either click on ID or title, but let's go ahead and click on the incident. And that's going to bring us to the incident details screen. On this incident details screen, you can see this. You'll notice that all of this stuff is grayed out. So you're the administrator, but this, you can't touch anything on this. This is just the spot where you can kind of take a look at everything. And the reason you can't change anything here is because right now this is still just a referral. So the purpose of this is this gives you an opportunity as an administrator to kind of look through. You can look through all of the details here. You can also see there's a section over here for the participants. So this is talking about the incident details. You can also get some of the details for each participant. In this case, we only had the one participant, but again, just understand you've kind of got a screen here to review everything. But as an administrator, you're looking through all of this, you're noting it, you're reading it, it all seems to be there, except, oh, remember that teacher was in a hurry. And we get to this remediation section and we see, hey, they never put in any remediation actions. So really, this isn't exactly ready for me to deal with as an incident. I need some more information from the teacher. So remember, I said you can't edit anything. There's a slight caveat to that. You can see here, there is one thing you can edit, and that's this little section right here. This is currently a referral. We've recognized that there's information that's missing. So let's make sure that we actually click return with feedback. There's also this close observation option. Be aware, you close that observation, it's closed. That's going to make it go away. It's off of the teacher's observation because it's no longer an observation. It's no longer an active thing. In this case, we're going to go ahead and click return with feedback because we need some more information. So let's click that. It brings us a nice little slide out screen for a spot where you can enter feedback. And I can say, please complete teacher remediation actions. So I've kind of noted what I need. You can see there's also kind of a feedback history that comes through on this. Since there was no previous feedback here, there's not anything else that's showing, but I'm going to go ahead and say return this. As soon as I click it, you saw that grayed out. You can come over here and see that in the observation status, it has been returned. Now, as an administrator, if you said, oops, I saw something else, you can actually click reclaim. That's going to pull that back away from the teacher, bring it back to you as a referral. You can see I can do that, and I can just say, you know what? Forgot to say please. I don't know. So we'll go ahead and reclaim that. And then, you know what? We're going to update that feedback, and we're going to say, not feedback here. Sorry, we're going to go back to return with feedback. We're going to say, please, and return that back to the teacher. So again, now it's returned. Let's throw that teacher hat back on. Go back in here, and this is that old screen again. It was just that referred. I'm going to refresh the screen. Now you're going to see that looks a little bit different. So now it's back, and there's this big old bright note on here that it was returned, and there's an exclamation mark. That exclamation mark is telling you, hey, it's been returned because it was returned to you because something needs to be done on this. So what do you do as a teacher when it comes back as a return? Well, you can see over here, there's this little ellipsis. And if I click on that, there's two options. You have review details and you have edit observations. So you're going to want to make sure that the teachers understand that they'll want to first review details because this is the details, the feedback details. If you click on edit observation, or I should say when we click on edit observation, you'll notice that there is no information about that feedback. And that's because they have to come here first to see it. So be aware of that. If we click review details, we can see, again, there's the observation date. It was updated today. Here's the ID. And here's feedback. You can see that I had said, please complete this with remediation actions. And you can see then I took it back. And I said, I forgot to say please. And here's my finishing that sentence of saying please. So you can kind of see that whole trail as the teacher as well. But now the teachers read this and they understand, oh yeah, I forgot to put that in. And I have a very polite administrator. So we'll go ahead. And now that we know as a teacher what we need to do, We can click Edit Observation. We can scroll down. We can come back to those remediation actions taken and say, you know what, I did forget to put some things. And I already wrote in the description kind of what I did. You can see I asked again, I warned. Let's say then our remediation actions, we gave a verbal warning. We gave a second verbal warning. We even gave a third verbal warning. Still nothing was done. We could put in there in the comments, provided 3 opportunities for student to self-correct. Student did not respond or did not comply. Student also disrupted class and they yelled. So we've got notes in here, and we'll go ahead, and there's other things that could be that could be selected. Again, you can kind of empower your teachers to have whatever options they wanted. In this case, we're going to say at this school, only administrators can actually create the discipline actions. So these are the things we did to try and address it. And when we couldn't, we submitted this as a referral. So I'm going to come back again, and again, if they needed to just save this temporarily while they were still working on it, they could always save as observation so that they could come back and work on it again. But since we've put those notes, we're going to go ahead and submit that again as a referral. It gives us that warning again. Yep, we understand that there's no touchy after we submit as a teacher. So we'll send that back out. We've got that in a referred status again. And now if we put our admin hat back on and we come back into all incidents, we can see there it is again in that referred status because it's come back to us. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this back up. And now as an administrator, I can see, hey, they put that in down here in teacher remediation comments. They even put that additional information of the things they tried to do. It was also already noted up here, but that's fine. You know what? We have everything we need to actually make this an actionable incident now. So our next step is to actually make this an incident. So what we need to do is we need to take this and change it from an incident type to our actual discipline incident. Now you're going to notice something. Actually, let me put that back to teacher referral. Up here on this little slide window, you can see this. I kind of skipped over this at the beginning, and apologies for that. But here's part 1. This little icon shows you're on the incident details screen, and you'll notice that there's only 2 places you can go. You can look at incident details, and you can review. Now there's a next button I could click down here with this being a teacher referral, but if I click that, it goes right over to that review, and all you're getting is kind of that same screen again with a little thing here where you could filter for participants as well, but you can't really do much other than save and close this. Now if I were to go back and now change it to a discipline action, and hit save. Again, clicking next isn't going to do anything. I haven't changed it yet. I just changed the menu option. I have to click save. Now suddenly there's this extra step that popped in here. So now we've converted this into an actionable incident. You'll also notice that all of this stuff started popping up in the description. So now there's more in the description. As an administrator, you could come in and you could use this also to put in your notes. So you could even come down here and say, received a referral, the teacher reviewed and verified that this is an actionable discipline incident. Returned to teacher to complete. And again, this would be completely up to you as a district what you put in. Yeah, good thing I can't type. Yeah, there we go. Well, maybe. There we go. Remediation actions. It was returned. And it's ready. So, you know, we can put a little update in here as we want. You can also now, as the administrator here in this screen, kind of update the title that you want to call this, those kinds of things. So there's a few little things that you can now kind of have opened up. You can see there's also incident attributes. Keep in mind these incident attributes are attributes that would apply to the entire incident, not to a specific participant or rule or anything like that. This is just for the overall incident. But we've got that kind of typed in here under that initial incident details. Let's go ahead and click next to move over into the participants section. So here we have the screen for the participants that would be involved. Again, in this case, we just have the one. If you needed to add additional participants, there is an option here where you could, as the administrator, say, you know what, I got more information as I was investigating this, and there were more people to add. You can again see it's a little bit different looking than the teacher referral, since we're not in the Power Teacher portal. Then there's not really a class assigned. So this is just looking at student, staff, or other. It's a little bit more simplified as far as what options you have. And again, this would work just like a smart screen, or smart search, sorry. So as you're going through, you start typing in 3 letters and it starts trying to filter for you. I believe you can also in here search by student number. So you also aren't just limited to the student name in that search. You'll also see that there is an advanced filter. With the advanced filters, when you click on that for your student searches, it allows you to then kind of further limit where those searches would occur. So you could select a specific building if you know this had occurred in a specific building, or you needed to search a specific building. You can kind of filter down by grade level, and you can filter by only active students. So you have some options there. And again, you have the other button here, and that option to create that other. So again, just be aware of all of that. But in our situation, we're just going to have the one student. So now that we have that student here, we're going to go ahead and start looking at filling in behaviors, actions, objects, all of that good stuff. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. So you can, if you wanted, click on this edit pencil, and that's going to bring you to the edit participant screen. And you can see it's all right here. And here are spots where you can expand out behaviors. You could click on a behavior to add. You can click on add an action. You can click on add an object, and you can add participant attributes. Participant attributes, again, it mentions it here, they apply to across all roles, not to just a specific role. So again, just be aware when you're creating those attributes that those are not you can't make those just specific to a role. It's just over the participant as a whole. So that's one way that you can add some of those details. You'll also see down here, though, you have the behavior section with a plus button, the action section with a plus button, the object section with a plus button. You can click on any one of these, and what that's going to do is it's going to open that same screen, but it's going to save you a step. And we'll just start with behaviors by automatically pulling up a new behavior for you to start filling in. You can see there it was. If you didn't mean to do that, you can, of course, delete that out. And now we're back to just like that edit participant screen. But that just saves you a click if you want to do that. So let's go ahead and start building this out. So we had a student that went and had their cell phone out in class, and we wrote, maybe we have a student handbook, and that student handbook says you can't have your cell phone out in class, guys. That's very clear. So the first thing that we want to do is let's take a look at the behavior codes. What did the student do to kind of earn this incident? So as we look through this, again, training database, we have lots of things in here. We might even have things listed a couple of times. But for our use, let's go ahead and scroll down, because we know we had a code along with subcodes that we created. Remember, in the setup training that you would have been at in part 1, they mentioned how you can create behavior codes and you can create behavior subcodes. In this case, we made a behavior code of violation of school rules. Very straightforward. And we also made sure to include a lovely set of subcodes that acknowledges all of those school rules that were in that handbook. In this case, what did they do? They had electronic device use violation. So we're going to go ahead and set that as an electronic use violation. So now we've got the code, we've got the subcode, and we're going to go ahead and note you could put a comment on this behavior. I'm just going to keep this simple and say student had cell phone out in class. And you know what? This is what really spurred them initially getting in trouble. So we're going to say in here, you know what? Then that was, this is that primary behavior. This is the main thing that is driving this incident. So we want to make sure that we indicate that here's a primary behavior. You also see there's an allegation button. If you were working on an incident, you have a lot of people listed. Somebody makes a claim that that someone else was involved, but you don't have that finalized yet. You can note that as an allegation, just to kind of have that as an indicator to help you along as you're working in the incident. But here we're just going to be noting that this is the primary behavior. And you know what? Also, we're going to state in here that it's not the only behavior that happened. This was the primary, and we've noted, sorry about that. We've noted up here that that was that primary behavior, but we did say we're going to create an additional behavior. And on that additional behavior, we're going to say, oops, I overcreated those. Let me delete that one. Let me go back to this behavior and let's get this in here. She was yelling. She was disrupting class. We're going to say, I think we have a setting in here for, here we go, insubordination. And Margie was mentioning in that first training about how you can put little indications. In this case, we noted, you know what, insubordination, that was state reportable. So we're going to note that. So we're going to say that there was insubordination. We're going to say student disrupted class and was defiant. And again, this may not apply, but I just want to kind of make this as something for kind of setting Susan up for a little bit later as we're working for this. And again, I mentioned you can only have one primary violation. And we already noted over here that that was the primary violation. So if I come back in here and I say, you know what, this was a primary violation, it gives you that warning. Hey, you already have a primary. Are you wanting to change that? You know what? No, we're not going to change that right now. So we're just going to leave it as that. And you could from here then click in and expand out and just keep working through this. But just so you can see how this moves along, I'm just going to click update participant now. And now you can see kind of on this incident overview screen, we have the two behaviors that we noted. And we've got it marked here, what was the primary behavior that's driving this. So now that we've created these behaviors, let's move on to what's going to happen. What's the action? Now, I had mentioned this state reporting. We're going to kind of ignore that for right now because Susan's going to get into documenting or talking more about the documentation of some of those action attributes and things that happen once you have a state reportable incident. I'm just going to focus now on, let's say this was just there. We'll ignore this for now, but we've got to create it as needed for later. But we're going to go ahead and say the actions for now. You know what? We just have the primary discipline, which wasn't necessarily state reportable at the time, and what we do in that case, we generally give a detention when they don't put the cell phone away like they need to. So we're gonna come down here and we're just gonna say, you know what, they received a detention. We're choosing that action code that is going to be the consequence for what they did. The next option that it notes in here is what action do we want to assign. So again, you can click on the action to assign. You can choose to assign an action to a participant. Maybe you have multiple actions that are going to need to happen. So you want to kind of break it down on what action is being applied to what behavior. You can see here the two behaviors that I noted. And so you could apply that action specific to that behavior as well. But for this, we're keeping it simple. We're just going to say we're applying this to the participant. And you know what? That's going to be a detention, and they're going to serve that detention. They're going to serve it tomorrow. They're going to serve it on Wednesday. So we're going to set the beginning and end dates for that detention. And we're going to say that detention, or that student is supposed to have a 1 hour detention after school. So we've got that noted. And you can see there are some other screens back here that are available to you come back to if you were modifying the incident. Maybe you set this as what needed to happen, but they were sick on Wednesday, so you actually had to move it out to Thursday, and you could change that actual resolution date, and you could kind of note that. There's some other fields here that can be created. You can see that are available if you as a district choose to have those available when you're building these out. So you can add durations. You can add the actual durations. You can put in some, they have additional spots you can create for notes, those kinds of things. But we're going to keep this simple for now. We're just going to note this. We're going to update this. And now you can see we have that action in here. There is also this third spot. This would be where you could put in log any items or attributes that basically any log items or attributes or whatnot that were connected to the participant. If you wanted to, you could say, you know what, there was some personal property and it was a cell phone. If you wanted to put that in there, there was only one of them involved. But again, that's kind of up to you as the district or whatever needs to happen in there as you want to document it. But you can just kind of see how all of this plays out. And now you can see we have in here the behavior, we have the actions, we have the objects, we have the participant that was involved. We didn't put any attributes over the entire incident. There weren't any assigned. Really, for something like this, this is pretty much the long and short of it. So we're basically done. The next thing we do, we can click next. Next is going to give you an opportunity to go over to this review screen so you can give one more time, just kind of take a look and see what's this going to look like as a whole. We've kind of got everything filled out here. We've got a nice breakdown of the participants. Their role was the offender in this case. Here's the behaviors that applied. This was primary. You've got a nice breakdown of the entire thing as a whole. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and I'm going to say, let's save this. And now that it's saved, I can go back to all incidents. Now I could have said save and close. If I had done that, it would have come right back over. It would have saved it and then just brought you right back into this screen. You can see, you notice all of a sudden this is gone. Hey, that referral that we had, it's not there. And it's because we're still filtering for that referral. So if I were to clear that, let's just clear that out. There it is. Hey, there it's back because it's no longer a teacher referral. This was a discipline incident that had been accepted. So it's done. That is the creation of an incident from the point of a teacher observation all the way to the point of finalizing this. Now, you can see, not too bad, but that did take some time. And if you've got cell phone violations, you've probably got a lot of cell phone violations. So that may be something that you need to create often. And as such, you don't want to have to go in and fill all of that stuff. It's pretty much, as a district, generally when you're getting those, it's just going to be kind of a pretty cookie cutter situation. You don't have to put a lot of information in here, in that cell phone violation. It's not really even state reportable. So you don't have to worry about getting real detailed to kind of cover all of your bases. So maybe to speed things up, it would be a good idea for those things you do a lot to go ahead and create incident templates and participant templates to help speed things up. So let's walk through how you can do that. First thing you're going to want to do to create those, you need to come over into your district management and you're going to want to come in and click on behavior. Once you click on behavior, you can see in the behavior menus in district management, there is a spot for incident templates and there's a spot for participant templates. So here's where you can add those. I'm going to start with incident templates. So I'm going to go ahead and click on incident templates. That's going to bring you to the incident template screen. Again, the idea behind incident templates is just to simplify recording for an incident when you're creating or editing records a lot. These can be created for both district and school levels. It's going to help pre-populate a lot of the fields on the incident details page. And also keep in mind, when you create a template, creating a template isn't locking you from doing anything else. It's helping pre-fill a lot of this information. So fields populated from an incident template, they can still be edited on the admin side once you fill those in. Based on specific incident requirements, but this would help you in filling out a lot of that basic information if it's a more cookie cutter situation. So you can see, again, we do have basic filters. I don't have any templates created yet, so you don't really have much to apply, but you can apply some basic filters if you needed to filter down, and because you had a lot of these. In this case, since I don't, let's just jump right into making one. You can do that with the create button. So we're going to go ahead and click on create. Once we click on create, it's going to start out with having you fill out the basic information. That means this is the information just for what the template looks like. Basically, what you see for a template. What's the name of the template going to be? Those kinds of things. It's also worth noting in this basic information screen, there's a spot here for enable template. So if you wanted, you can create lots of templates just, working on these. And if you don't click here on enable, it's not going to be in the drop-down menu when we get to the point to create that. So you can have stuff, you can work through it a little bit, make sure you've got what you need and not have it a usable template until you actually click enable. In this case, we're going to want to make sure that that is enabled. And we're going to go ahead and type in a template name. We're going to make this real simple. I'm going to be super creative on all of this. But let's go ahead and just say student had cell phone out in class. And again, here's a template description. You could put in a description if you want. You've got 4,000 characters worth to work with, so you could put quite a bit in. Keep in mind, again, this isn't the incident itself. This is just giving the information about that template. So we'll just say student had cell phone out in class, and we're acknowledging that I made this. So we'll go ahead and note that. And let's click next here. And now we can come down into the incident details. So again, going to be super creative with this. In the incident, when you're creating the incident, what is the name of that incident going to be? Well, that's going to be that the student had the cell phone out in class. And what best describes that title? Well, student had their cell phone out in class. Like I said, not being real creative here, but you guys, I'm sure, understand and get the point on this. Again, this is all filling out that incident description part of the incident details. So the next thing that we want to look at, what kind of incident is this? Well, this is a discipline incident. So we're going to note that. And you can see it does already note, and I kind of mentioned this before, incidents default to the current date and current time. And it's telling you that the templates do the same thing. Just like before, though, you can edit that. There'll be a nice little spot for a calendar and a clock, or you can type it in. Excuse me. So you have some options there, but it does tell you in the template by default, it's going to just put current date and time. You'll also notice here, it does still have that time frame option. When we click on that, you can see again, we have some choices. Because we're saying had it out in class, we're going to probably assume that the time frame is during class for pretty much any of these scenarios. And there is a spot here to put prepared by. Again, that's, maybe as a district leader, there's only one person in our building or in our district or whatever that creates these incidents. I'm going to assume for our example that that is the case. So you know what? The only person that ever creates these, it's me. So I'm just going to pre-populate that in so I don't have to remember to do it later. Now, before I move down to the next section, I want to note something here. You'll see in each one of these sections, incident description, location, attributes, all of these, there's a little edit pencil over here as well. And that edit pencil is pretty important. It's nice to have. What that edit pencil is going to do is if we click on that, it lets us set for those different fields what's going to be included in a template and what do you have to fill in. So for example, you know what, maybe you don't have a description included, but you do want to make it required. In this case, we're going to say this is a pretty cookie cutter thing, so it's always included. But we're also going to say, you know what, it's required to, just because I want you to see how that looks a little different. So you could say it's not included. If you don't include it, you can't require it. Just be aware of that. So do you include the field, and is the field required? So you can have fields here. You could put nothing in it. It would be blank. But if you include the field, it's going to be there. And if you say it's required, they aren't going to be able to submit the incident until that's been filled out. So we're going to note these are all required. For a cell phone, there's not really a financial impact. We're going to say, you know what, that's not something we need to worry about within the incident description. So we're not going to include that. It's turned off. I can't require it, but that's just fine. So we'll submit that there. Let's now move on, and you'll notice original, the title is always going to be required. You can't submit an incident with no title. So that off the get-go, even, it wasn't even an option in here to make it, included or not. It's got to be included. But these other things, you notice, didn't have those little asterisks. This is now indicating you have required those. And if you want, you click on this, that doesn't really do anything, but you can see that they are required there now. So let's move on to location. We said that we know that this happened in class. Now it's telling you off the bat, incident templates default to the current school. So that's fine. You can already set the school, or the school is going to already be defaulted. You can change that as a district administrator. Now it's important to know, if this was a school level administrator, that school is going to be there, and it's actually going to be locked in for that school level administrator, because somebody that only has access to do administrative level work in the school can't create an incident for somebody in a different school. They can create it for their school. So that's just kind of the way that functions. But we can set a location, and we're going to say, you know what, in this case, we know that this is going to be at Apple Grove High School. Again, that could be changed, but we're also going to note in here for our purposes that this happened in the classroom because it was a cell phone violation in class. And we're not going to fill anything on the location because, again, that's where we put that detailed information on, like a room number or something like that. We don't know what classroom this is going to happen in generally, so we're not going to change that. But we are going to say in here, we're including that location, we're including that location description, and we're going to require both because they both need to be there. We'll go ahead, click submit on that. You can see again that we made those required. We didn't type anything in on this one. You'll see how that all works. And again, here's all of those attributes. This is a pretty minor thing. So these aren't really going to apply. I don't even want to have to worry about these when I'm creating a quick incident. Or sorry, not the right term. Quick incidents aren't really a thing anymore, but I don't want to have to deal with this when I'm making an incident through a template, when I'm wanting to do this in a quick manner. So I'm going to say in my setup, I'm not including any of these. I wish there was a select all button. That would make things a little faster, but it is what it is. We're going to work through this, and I'm going to go ahead and submit that. So now I've put all of this information in. I already noted in here they aren't included. Everything on this is basically set up as a template. I'm going to tell that to save. Now, also to speed this up even more, because when I'm putting these in, I'm putting in a lot, and I don't want to have to be fast, or I don't want to have to fill out a whole lot. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a participant template as well for this kind of thing. So again, as a cell phone violation, it's generally going to be a student with a cell phone violation. If you have different students pulling them out, you're going to be addressing those student by student. So let's go ahead and create a simple participant template as well that is taking into consideration a single student. So again, don't have a list yet, but I'm going to go ahead and create the template. Again, participant templates are just to help automatically add some of the corresponding behaviors, actions, and objects to the participant portion of an incident. So it really helps fill out some of the meat and potatoes of that. Just again, be aware both with the incident template and with participant templates, when you apply a template, if you had started an incident and then you came back later and said, hey, I actually want to apply a template, that may overwrite existing data in some of those common fields. So again, and I'll kind of talk about that, just showing it a little bit as we get into creating one from scratch. But just be aware, if you've already started creating the incident and then you apply a template, well, the template is meant to pre-fill that stuff in, so it may overwrite something. Again, we're going to come here on this participant template though, and we're going to enter a template name. We're going to say student with cell phone out in class. So that's the name of the participant template. And we'll say use when a student has their cell phone out in class. So you can see we've got that noted. Now, what's the role for this participant going to be? Well, they're going to be the offender, because it's a one-on-one situation, as we've noted. So we've got the offender noted. And there's a cool little note down here, associated incident templates. So maybe you have, you created that incident template to make things simple. Maybe you have lots of participant templates, you have lots of incident templates. So normally you create an incident and then you see the participant template and you click and you're looking through the list in the order that it normally was, and you've got 100 of those, and that's a lot to scroll through. You can say, I actually want to associate this to a specific incident template, and that will link the participant template to the incident template so that it appears at the top of the list when an incident template is selected. So you select incident template, And then it's like, it'll ask if you have a participant template, and you click that drop down. Because I've associated this and said, yep, I'm going to associate it to that incident, it's going to be one of the first options. Well, it would have been one of the first options with only one anyways, but if there was a long list, it would be one of the first options, even if it wasn't naturally one of the first options in your participant lists or your participant templates list, generally speaking. But we're going to go ahead and note that. We've got that to the, not all. Well, I guess it is all since there's only one, but we've got that associated with that all incident template. So now let's start filling out the behaviors. So when we click in here, again, we're going to make this pretty short and simple. The behavior is going to be, and you can see here, this does mention you can set on a template to go across multiple participants if it's applied to multiple, if the behavior is applied to multiple people. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and say this was, again, phase down here, a violation of school rules. And we have that subcode. And again, I was mentioning subcodes. If there wasn't one created, it's not going to give you that subcode option. So just be aware that that's there. So this option comes up because there are subcodes that apply to this. And we're going to note that again, this is an electronic use violation. And again, this is the primary behavior. And in this situation, since just because they did a cell phone violation doesn't necessarily mean that they were disruptive like the other student was, we're not going to add a second behavior. We're just going to make this focus on that one behavior. If it made sense to add another behavior, you could apply these templates and then still add an additional behavior on that incident, because these put the data in, but you can still edit and add additional things. So we've got that noted. Let's go ahead and add the action. What's going to happen because they had their cell phone out? And again, we're going to say every time, that's always going to be a detention for the first time, and you're going to assign that to the participant. Now, we don't necessarily know what date we're going to have that on, so we're not going to put a specific date there, but we are going to say student to serve 1 hour detention after school. And again, we could set a detention code, or we could set a duration code if you have those built and something were to apply. And you can also, if you know that you assigned the duration, you can add that assigned duration. Be aware though, on this, it's a little bit weird. You can't type in any letters. So you couldn't say 1 hour, you could just say 1. We're going to leave that alone for now though. We're not going to worry about that information. And then again, action attributes, that'll be discussed more when Susan gets into things. But let's go ahead and let's look through this a little bit further down. That's a long list. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here quickly. We're not going to worry about having any objects. We're not going to worry about having any attributes. And we want to go ahead. This looks a little different than the other one. Here, under each of these sections, instead of a pencil, you see there was a little gear icon. Again, this is where you could say, hey, that behavior code, it's there, it's included. You can see that's grayed out. It has to happen. Primary behavior and allegation, you could choose not to have those show at all if it didn't make sense. Like, for example, I don't need the allegation to show because this isn't going to be something that would likely be an allegation. We're going to go ahead and say done on that section. Here on the actions taken, I'm going to say that we don't even need the assigned duration. We don't really, we do need the action taken, and we're going to require it. We are going to require these. Remember, I didn't pre-fill those out. They are included as an option. I'm going to say you have to make sure you put it in. This was already pre-filled out, and we're saying, yep, but it's also going to be required just in case somebody deleted it out. And we're going to say that duration code, we're not even going to worry about that. We don't even need that duration code on this case. We will note the actual duration, just that way there's a spot to say, like, if it was changed, that is going to be there, but it's not going to be required. And we'll even include some notes in case they wanted to change that, and an action change reason in case they wanted to change that. So we'll go ahead and put that in. And now I'm going to go ahead and click done. You can see we've set those settings for that. We come down here. We're not going to worry about objects. And again, we're going to say we don't even need these attributes. Why muddy the waters on that? let's just make it short and simple. We're going to say done and then save. Remember, you got to save it. So once we click save, it's going to tell you that it's been created. If we come back here, we can now see that there is a participant template. Wonderful. And next, we're going to go ahead and go over into district management, or I'm sorry, go into people, all incidents. And we're going to quickly create a new incident. So let's click on create incident. And here at the very top, incident details. Is there an incident template? You know what? There absolutely is. Student out in class. It's going to tell me, hey, if you update this, it's going to change some visibility and it's going to fill some stuff in. You want that? I sure do. Once I do, now look at the beauty of that. The title's filled out. It's defaulted to those dates. We're going to leave that alone. There's the discipline. There's that stuff already filled out. Most of this is already completely filled out. The only thing I need to fill out, because it is required, is that I put in Mr. Townsend's classroom. So now I'm going to click next. We've got participants. Let's go ahead and add a participant. We're going to say that this was, you know what? It was, here, it was, I should have picked a student ahead of time. Let's go ahead and just say it's this student. And we come down here and we have that option. Again, when you're creating these from scratch, you could add a role manually if you wanted, but we have an applicable participant template. So let's go ahead and say, we're going to go with that student out in class. And it's going to say, again, this is going to pre-fill some stuff out. So I click apply. And now you can see we already have the offender role taken care of. If you want to change that, you can click here. It does say, expand the highlighted section to update required fields that haven't been filled out. It's already warning you on that. We've got behaviors. We've got that noted. We're already good to go on that. We've got the actions, but it tells me there's something incomplete here. So I can click that and I can say, you know what? What's incomplete? Oh, yeah, they just need that Wednesday after school detention. And there it is. It's already got that filled in for me because I said to do that. And then you have those additional fields that I said go ahead and include, but not require. So I'm going to add that participant. And now we can click next to see that review. We've got everything created. We can save and close. It's bringing me right back to that all incident screen. And there's that other template created from scratch discipline incident. As simple as that. You can see how much quicker it is to get through that when you have those templates pre-built. That's kind of a long and short walkthrough of creating incidents, whether that's from a teacher observation or from scratch and in using templates. Appreciate that. And from here, Susan's going to step in and she's going to start talking to you guys about some of the state reporting side of this.
Thank you, Chris. So if you're accustomed to using log entries, it isn't very different. The state reporting side of it is not very different from log entries. Each situation would need evaluated to determine if it is state reportable. Kind of a good rule of thumb is if the discipline impacts instructional time, then it is reportable to the state. So some things that are included in that would be emergency removals, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, expulsion, things like that have to be reported to the state. Detentions, bus suspensions, student misses recess, those things are not reportable to the state. So for instance, here, let's just say this is where we were at and we opened the actions on this participant. When you open actions here and you scroll down, so let's say now, because it's her 4th cell phone violation, now, she's going to get an in-school suspension. So, you can come down here as Chris has demonstrated and you can make notes, you can do whatever you would like. Let's just say 4th violation. Now is ISS. And then as you scroll down, you can see in the action attributes, this looks very similar to log entries. So, and it will work the same as log entries. If the entry has any of the Ohio fields checked, it will pull them. If none are checked, it will not pull them. So we're going to say that she's going to get an in-school suspension now, and it is for insubordination. She's followed the our steps in our policy, whatever you have set up there. And then you go down and it's the exact same fields that it's always been for Ohio reporting. There's one type of discipline you select. You have 5 different reasons that you can select. So you can say, it's a violation of school policy. It is insubordination. It is disruptive behavior. It is, whatever is applicable for the situation. The remainder of the Ohio fields, if it is a preschool through 3rd grade student, you know that there are different reporting requirements for those situations. The discipline sequence number can be left blank. There are changes coming from the Ohio Department of Education that are not final until mid-August. So with mid-August, we will be making changes to both log entries and incident management for those changes. The way the sequence number is used, it will be different than it has been in the past. So we will address that at that time. So here's where you put the discipline days, how many days of in-school suspension does she get? If the discipline is modified, if that's applicable, you would do that there. You can enter the building if you would like. It is not a requirement. Referred to an alternative program. And then there are also all of the CRDC elements. This is not a CRDC reporting year. FY27 is not. So these, will not need to be worried about this year. And also these 2 items, again, this is our test bed where we're working on the changes that are coming in August. And these are things that are coming out in the August change. Moving victim of student violence to obsolete is one of them. And then the date of the discipline. So for each student, each discipline, this, would have to be filled out for the Ohio stuff. So if you had a situation where there were multiple students involved, let's say a fight, and you've got 4 students in there, maybe due to their involvement, one gets an in-school suspension, one gets an out-of-school suspension, and one was just a bystander, he doesn't get anything, so you can have within the same incident different levels of discipline that get reported to the state. And so it is attached to each participant. So then when you update that participant, you can see there's an in-school suspension here now, and that will get pulled for Ohio State reporting. Just an FYI for the reporting, you can see that in the new release that we just put out, there is the ability to tell when you pull the report where you want your discipline reporting to come from. Do you want it to come from incident management? Do you want it to come for logs? The Ohio reporting portion has to come from the same place for the entire year. So you can't say, I want my elementary building to use logs. I want my high school to use incident management. You can't do that. It's for the district. You also can't say, I want it to pull logs for first semester, and then I'm going to switch to incident management and pull for the second semester from that. Again, you can't do that. You have to pull from one or the other for the entire year for Ohio State reporting. Another question that we've had is, are we going to bring in prior years discipline reporting imported into incident management? We are not. If you think about it, that would kind of like putting a square peg into a round hole, because the state reporting, is one incident, one student. incident management is multiple, so pulling any data in would not be, first of all, an easy task, or not a very efficient way of verifying that data that we would be pulling in. So you would just have to know that, prior to FY27, we use logs. We now use incident management. But any questions, anything? The part 3 will have more on the reporting within incident management. It is a more robust reporting. So, that'll be something you'll be interested in seeing, I'm sure. Is the ID number the same as the student number? And is there a way for that to be a name instead?
If you're referring to the incident ID, that's not going to be the same as a student number.
Agreed. It will not.
The incident ID does have a title though, so there's always going to be an internal incident ID number, but you do have a title and you can search by that title.
So the admin has to open each to find a kiddo. So I think you're talking about on the dashboard, maybe? Find a kiddo, or yes, okay. So did you talk about the dashboard, Chris?
Yeah, I did. I touched on the dashboard.
That's what I thought. Yeah. There's different things that you can, sort your dashboard on, based on what you were looking at. But you can also use a student selection. Chris, I may go back and let you show that, just because this test bed's got way too much stuff in it. I think I'll muddy the water.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me see what I can do here. Give me one second. Share my screen. And so let's say we're just looking at a whole lot of kids here, but
Correct.
Big school, a big school district. So we've got 5,000 seniors here. If I were to go with that selected and go to people, all incidents, it should now give you an option. As you can see here, use current selection. I just want to see that, apply it, and now it's filtered for only those 12th graders, all 5,016 of them.
So if they had, an individual student pulled up, they could say, just show me the ones for that kiddo too, or, a smaller group.
Absolutely.
Does that help at all, Jen?
This is a large subsection, but yeah, they can make a much smaller selection.
Right. Does that help at all, Jen? So a couple other questions. Can you open a student and go to behavior, incidents, and edit? You can.
Yep. Here's define in classroom. There's the participants. Here's the behavior. Here's the ability to edit it.
And so let's just pull up just Brandon Adair on the front screen. Chris, if you would, please.
Yeah. Good old Brandon. He's in a lot of trouble with that. So,
So
right, so we've got him selected.
Right.
We go to all incidents.
No, let's go back to him.
Oh, okay.
Please. Sorry. I didn't
Certainly.
make that clear. Just open him up. Just open
sure.
Brandon. Yep. And then if you go to the side, the behavior and incidents, I think that's what you meant, Nita. So you can see everything that's just for him, just for that student. And you can edit within that. If you open the ID.
I think ID or title, either way, it'll get you to the same screen. Brings you into the incident details. And you can come over to participants, edit those behaviors.
Yep.
And if needed, come in, start adding action attributes too.
So it says, so you still have to click through the 62 instances in that example. From the list, is there no way to find a specific student without opening a record? So if you needed to find a specific student, let's say Brandon Adair, that would be how you would do it. Open Brandon Adair, go to incidents, behavior. If you're saying, I've got the list up of all incidences and I want to find a student within the all incident listing, can they do
There's
that,
filters.
Chris? Do you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
we could come over here. We could clear this so we don't have any selection. We come into all incidents. We've got all those. We want this by. I thought that
Okay,
here,
so this must be the ID that Jen was referring to. Now I'm understanding. Sorry about that,
that's
Jen.
talking about the incident ID.
Correct, not a
So
student
that,
ID.
yeah, that's not a student ID.
Mhm.
That's filtered by an incident ID.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be honest with you because I don't see the ability to search. It has participant any, but
So if you put, let's just put participant any,
yeah, participant any,
and then
and
can
just
you
try.
just type Adair? Yeah.
There it is. There's this. Well, it's 7 now.
So does
So it
that
looks like
help
it
at all,
did.
guys? So you can find a student within that all incident list? Yep.
Thanks for your time, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.